I have taken the Northern Illinois University Huskies and rebuilt them over the past 6 seasons in college football 25. We went all the way from the MAC conference to the Big 10 conference and are ranked #1 in the country headed into our final season. But there is only one problem. We have won multiple MAC conference championships, have won the Big 10 conference championship, and have even made the national championship, but have not won that big game yet. In this final season of our rebuild, we need to not only have a top 5 recruiting class, as well as a Heisman finalist, but we need to win the national championship in this final year of the rebuild, or I will be giving away a copy of College Football 26 when it releases to a lucky subscriber who comments down below what team you'll be using for a Dynasty this summer. Our first game of the season was at home, and we were taking on a familiar opponent in the Western Michigan Broncos. This was a team we faced many times in the MAC conference when we were still a part of it a few seasons ago, but obviously we were a much better team on paper than they were now, but we couldn't be making plays like this. Thankfully, our offensive line would jump on that, and we were forced with a long 3rd and 17 trying to set it up with a halfback screen, but that would go nowhere and we would be forced to punt the ball. Thankfully, our defense would come up clutch and we would get some great field position to try to take the lead, but after that pass was almost intercepted, we were going to go back to the ground game. Western Michigan seemed to be all over us so far in this game, but we would pick up the first down here just barely, setting us up with a 3rd and goal here at the start of the second quarter, and we would get our way into the end zone. Just kidding, we would be a yard short, but the quarterback sneak would do the trick, as we would follow that up with another goal line situation, and this time we wouldn't be stopped short. With under 2 minutes to go, our sophomore quarterback Terrence Redmond was looking to get us down the field and get some more points before halftime against Western Michigan, and what a fantastic play that was from him, as he was able to improvise and complete that downfield. We still had 2 timeouts to work with, but we wanted to work our way along the sideline, and that would be picked off, allowing Western Michigan to score before halftime, and they were getting back in this game. As the #1 team in the country, we couldn't let this game be this close, so we needed points on this drive, and faced with a 3rd and 10, I wanted to pick this up because I did not want to settle. We couldn't even get a field goal out of that possession, so now Western Michigan had the ball, and they had plenty of time to try to get down the field to tie this game up. This was a huge 3rd down as we needed a stop, and the crowd was going crazy, but the Broncos would manage to keep this drive alive and get down into our territory, as this was going to be a touchdown. We clearly see the inexperience in this young Huskies team as we are battling it out with Western Michigan, but I have no doubt we're still going to get down and pull this game off. We needed to at least get down in the field goal range, as this would be a play action and Redmond would go deep down the left side, getting us down inside the 30-yard line of Western Michigan, as we would run a pitch sweep to the right side here, picking up 7 yards, and now it was time to run out the clock. Even if it was a last-second field goal, a win was still going to be a win here for us at home, as Western Michigan had finally started using their timeouts against us. This was a tricky situation because we didn't want to score necessarily, but I will still take the lead here with just over a minute to go. It was time to see if our defense could hold Western Michigan with less than a minute to go in the game, and after coming up with that huge sack, they were faced with a 3rd and 18, now backed up to a 4th and 27, and this was for the game, and somehow they're gonna convert. There is no way we just gave up a 4th and 27 to Western Michigan as time is running out, and the only bright side to this is that they need a touchdown at a minimum. With no timeouts left, this is gonna be the final play of the game, and it's incomplete, and this was a scare to start the season for sure, but it is the first step towards an undefeated season for us. After 2 weeks of recruiting as well, it was nice to see that we were on top of the list for almost all of our prospects, and for those who we weren't, we were steadily climbing, trying to get to that top spot. It is no surprise, however, after that close game that we dropped down to #2 in the nation, but we had a chance to get that #1 spot right back as we happened to be taking on the #1 team in the country. It was a rainy game here for us in Death Valley, and we were also playing in one of the toughest stadiums. On that first throw, I couldn't even see the icons of my receivers, so not even 2 minutes into this game, I knew it was going to be a tough day. Hopefully the crowd would get a little quieter for a us in this game as it went on today, and we would pick up a first down. But if we wanted this drive to stay alive, we were going to have to pick up a first down on 3rd and 7. We would do just that, but we're faced with another 3rd down, and we would dump it off to Juan Branham, who would get his way inside the 5, allowing us to punch it in on 2nd and goal from the 1-yard line. Clemson would drive down the field on their first possession and were looking to score, but we had a chance to hold them to just a field goal here on 3rd and 3, but they were going to convert. I don't think the odds of holding them on the goal line was very likely for us, but that sack would give us a chance as we had them backed up on 3rd and 9 and would throw it away in the end zone, as our lead would still be safe headed into the 2nd quarter. The momentum would quickly change though, as Clemson had another chance to take the lead, but once again would throw it away, and so our defense would force Clemson to settle for a field goal again. Our offense must have been having turnover difficulties, as once again Clemson was in the same spot, but we'd at least get them backed up to a 3rd down again, and this time would take them out of field goal range. And our defense really has been covering our butts in this game. Our offense has not been able to do anything since that very first possession, and with 3 timeouts here before the end of the first half, I was hoping that would change and we could get some points on the board. Even if it was just a field goal, 3 points would be better than none, and it was off to a good start as we would find our way into Clemson territory. And the crowd noise had got a lot more manageable, but with a big 3rd down here, they were loud once again. We would get an extra 15 yards with that roughing the passer penalty, bringing us all the way down to the 16-yard line of Clemson's. With 22 seconds left, we still had 2 timeouts to work with here as we would take a shot inside the 5, bringing us down to the 2-yard line where we would punch it in the end zone. Don't ask me how, but our kicker would miss that extra point, so it was still only a 7-point game for Clemson as their quarterback would break this tackle, and all they would need is a touchdown and an extra point to tie it up. Once again, our defensive line has been all over the Tigers as we have 5 sacks today and now a forced fumble, but that would result in 0 points and the Tigers were right back where they started. This would be a huge 3rd down stop if we could pick it up, and it looks like we would, just barely. But being down by 7, it was no surprise that they would go for it, but they wouldn't pick it up. That big play by our defense just took all the life out of this crowd and they had no energy. But now we still had 2 minutes to try and run off the clock if we wanted to win this game. That holding call was really gonna hurt us. But then we would come up with what might have been our clutchest play of the game, as look at this pass turning into a 1st down. And with Clemson starting to use their timeouts, 1 more 1st down should seal the deal for us, as this was more than we bargained for. And with no more timeouts left, 1 more 1st down should seal it for the Huskies, as it was another close one, but we would pick up the technical upset win, and hopefully we'll get the number 1 spot back from Clemson next week. As expected, after that win against number 1 Clemson, we were back at the number 1 spot in the top 25 polls, and we could finally start scheduling recruits for visits, as with 100 recruiting hours left this week, we were able to bring in our top 2 recruits on visits. This next game against Middle Tennessee State theoretically should be easy for us, but we saw how our game against Western Michigan went, so all we could do is hope and pray we didn't go down 3-0 early on. I don't know why our offense had been struggling so much early on in the season, but at least our defense was playing well, as we had a chance to go up 3-0, but we would also miss our first field goal attempt. That was the ugliest 4th quarter I have seen in a long time, as we only picked up 4 first downs. But at least things seemed to be getting a little better as we were down inside the red zone now. Inside the 5-yard line, we had a chance to go up first today as Terrence Redmond in the pocket would escape the pressure and take it into the end zone. But we could not let Middle Tennessee State score here right before halftime, and once again, defense would come up huge, forcing a fumble, as we desperately needed to turn things around here in the second half, only up by 7. We would finally score our 2nd touchdown of the day here on this jet sweep to go up 14-0, and after our defense got the ball right back, Terrence Redmond would connect with Bobby Clemens to put us up 21-0. A 4th down stop here could take Middle Tennessee State all the way out of the game, but we would have at least 1 more chance to try to make sure this game was a shutout. After failing to convert on 4th down, we would run the clock out, as we definitely turned things around here in the second half today against Middle Tennessee State. In recruiting news, 4-star halfback Jim Hearns would unfortunately lock us out of his school choices, but we had another 150 recruiting hours this week. That meant we could schedule even more visits, and we were trying to schedule everyone during our 2 conference games at home. We finally had not 1 but 2 players on the Heisman list, as both Thomas Hand and Juan Branham were now Heisman candidates. We were taking on number 10 Michigan in our first Big 10 conference game, and it wasn't off to a great start. They were already up 7-0 and had a chance to make this a 14-0 ball game, but But just like in the Clemson game, hopefully our defense would come up big time for us in this one, as that sack from Juan Rosario was just what we needed to help keep Michigan out of the end zone. It took all the way until the second quarter for us to finally get into Michigan's side of the field, but we were moving and had momentum. But we were faced with another third down here from the 25-yard line, and we would be short. Instead of going for it, we decided to play it safe and take our 3 points. But now we had a fourth down that we could not kick a field goal on, and we were going to go for it here as we would pick it up with Bobby Clemens. It looked like that decision was going to pay off as we were down inside the 15 and would be so close to scoring on this play. And all it would take would be a quarterback sneak here from Terrence Redmond, but somehow he was short, so we were going to go for it on 4th and inches, and they would get the stop. I cannot believe that we were not able to get a touchdown from the half-inch yard line. Because of that, we were now down 17-3 to Michigan and needed this touchdown. So let's hope we could actually find the end zone this time. We would end up tying it up, but now Michigan had a 1st and goal to take the lead. But thankfully, we still had over 3 minutes to go here, and this should be more than enough time for us to score. This was a big 3rd and 7 for us here as we needed to pick it up, but we would be well short. And even though our defense has been playing great today, there was no way that I was going to punt this. It looked like that decision might not pay off for us. And so now we needed this stop here on 3rd and 2 and would get it. Once again, our defense was coming up clutch for us, but now we needed to score, and that wasn't going to happen as Terrence Redmond throws a pick 6. It's going to be tough to win games when you have an inexperienced sophomore quarterback. So honestly, that really doesn't come as a surprise to me as there's not much we can do. We might take a look at our depth chart and see if we have anyone else on the roster with experience, because our offense has just been struggling with Terrence Redmond leading us so far this season. It is going to be an unfortunate loss here to Michigan in this game, as we definitely will no longer hold the #1 spot in the country. Not a great day for Redmond at all, as he went 16 for 31 for only 177 yards, 1 touchdown, and 1 interception. And even though Redmond is 5 overalls better than Ben Merrill, maybe we try playing the redshirt senior for our next game. As expected, that dropped us all the way down from #1 in the country to #10 where Michigan was. And we also lost out on 2 recruits, as they would sign with Kentucky and NC State. We were also close to losing other recruits to Michigan who just beat us, but hopefully a big time win here against FCS Northwest can change that for us, as we officially were making a quarterback switch this week from Terrence Redmond to Ben Merrill. After coming off to a loss to #10 Michigan last week, we were trying a new quarterback. Hopefully that first throw of his isn't an indication of the type of play that we're going to get from Ben Merrill, but we'll see how he plays as this game against FCS Northwest goes on. We wanted to get him started out early on in this game with some easy pass plays to get his confidence boosted, but I will say it does feel a little weird playing with a left-handed quarterback. Ben Merrill had played well for us in the first quarter and hopefully was looking to extend our lead here against FCS Northwest in the second quarter, but that's not going to happen with fumbles, as turnovers have seemed to be a main issue for our offense here in season number 7 of our rebuild. Our redshirt senior quarterback seemed to recover from that though, as he was getting us down the field, and then on 1st and goal, he would connect with Thomas Hand for a touchdown. Ben Merrill had another opportunity here to prove himself as the starting quarterback and get another chance to start next week, as he was given a 2-minute drill, and we were going to see if he was able to get our offense down the field and into the end zone before halftime. He would make an excellent read on this play as he saw the corner blitz, and Bobby Clemens would be wide open down the field for a touchdown. And I know this is a bad team we are playing against, but we might have found our starting quarterback for the next game. Halfway through the third quarter, and Ben Merrill had still been playing lights out for us as we would go up 35-0. And then on this play, he would show off his running skills as well, as he couldn't find anyone open and would take it in himself. I was starting to think Terrence Redmond actually might play in this game because we would be up by so much, but Ben Merrill was still in the game, and this would technically be his 8th touchdown pass of the game, and we would get the much needed victory after last week's loss to Michigan, picking up a 55-0 win behind senior redshirt Ben Merrill. No surprise, he would win player of the game with those stats today, as it would also earn him National Offensive Player of the Week award. However, that win didn't stop us from losing more recruits on our board, as we just seem to be losing them left and right now, including losing out prospects to our rival school, Michigan. We have yet to land a prospect, but hopefully that changes soon, and hopefully Ben Merrill is ready to see how he does against Big Ten Conference opponents. It was time to see how Ben Merrill would fare in his first matchup against a Big Ten defense, as he absolutely obliterated FCS Northwest's defense last week at home, but it was a different challenge today. Faced with his first 3rd and 8, we would see how he responds, and it would be a dart, helping us pick up the first down, and then he would take a shot deep to the end zone and would connect with Thomas Hand, as I think this definitely might have been the right move, switching from Terrence Redmond to Ben Merrill. Our offense had a huge game last week, but it was time to see if our defense could come to play as well, and so far they weren't. We at least had an opportunity to take the lead back, as this drive was looking promising, and Ben Merrill would find Nick DeLoach wide open down inside the 15, as then on 1st and goal, it would be Bobby Clemens hauling this one in for 6. Backed up to another 3rd down, our defense needed to make a stop as we completely fell for that halfback screen, and so Indiana was now down inside the 20-yard line as they were looking to score, and this drive would stay alive and result in a touchdown. We saw Ben Merrill complete a 2-minute drill against FCS West last week, so he was going to try to do it again for us, but I think the Indiana defense might be a little tougher than FCS Northwest. It didn't seem to faze him, however, as with just 2 plays, we were already down to the 20, and after that incomplete pass, he didn't want to force anything as he felt the pressure coming on this one and would take out and run it himself inside the 5, where we would hand it off to Juan Branham and he would find his way into the end zone. Not much had happened here in the 3rd quarter as we were going for it on 4th down and it looked like we picked it up, but unfortunately Bobby Clemens wasn't able to hold on to that pass for us. That would now give Indiana a chance to get down the field, and I thought for sure we had an interception here, but it would turn into a touchdown for the Hoosiers. And so once again, Ben Merrill was given just over 2 minutes to work with to try to take the lead back for us. This was a big 3rd down as we needed to convert it, and we would pick it up no problem. And Ben Merrill would follow it up with a beautiful touch pass here to Thomas Hand, getting us inside the 10-yard line. We were going to try to chew off as much time as we possibly could, and of course, right as I say that is the play we go ahead and score. Indiana only had a minute to work with and 2 timeouts remaining, and they needed more than just getting into field goal range, as that would not do it for them. A long 3rd and 19 here, we'd see if we could hold them, but no, we couldn't. No way we're going to give up a touchdown on 3rd and 19. That is unbelievable. There is no way on 3rd and 19 we just gave up a touchdown with less than a minute to go in the game. It was time to see what Ben Merrill was made of and if he could pull off the comeback for us, and he would end up throwing an interception, and that might have just ended our national championship hopes this season, as we would lose to unranked Indiana on the road. Because of that loss, we would lose out on 3 more recruits, and we still hadn't even signed a single one yet. It was looking like this season was already a complete wash for us, as we dropped all the way down to 22 and were in dead last of the Big Ten Conference. Despite the loss last week to Indiana, we were still rolling with Ben Merrill in this game against UCLA, because I still think he gave us a better chance to turn our season around than Terrence Redmond did. Our offense still seemed to be struggling though, as we were only up by 7 in the 2nd quarter, but thankfully we had a chance to change that here, as we could go up 14-0 over the Bruins. Unfortunately, that wouldn't happen though, as UCLA would bring the heat on this play, and we'd be forced to settle for a field goal. Even our kicker can't believe he missed it that bad, and those struggles still seem to be following us into the 2nd half of this game as well. Thankfully, this play would be going to booth review, and they would end up saying it was a catch, and this drive stayed alive for us. We absolutely needed to get a touchdown on this drive, as faced with a 2nd and 5, Merrill would go down, and that left a very long 3rd and 13 for us, and that would almost be picked. Hopefully this field goal attempt would go a little better for us, but it wouldn't, and now we needed to try and stop UCLA from tying this game up on this possession as they would convert. We would have another long 3rd and 16 here, as the pressure almost would get to them, but somehow they would convert and get inside the 5, making it easy for them to punch it in from the 1-yard line. Things have gone bad to worse for us now, as we were down 21-7, and this has already been such a disappointing season for us. We could not take another loss. If we wanted any shot at winning this game, we were going to need to get a stop, and once again had UCLA backed up to a long 3rd down, and it would be Antoine Penny coming away with the interception for us, giving us the momentum we needed to try and get back in this game, as Ben Merrill would take it himself into the end zone, and thankfully we would make the extra point this time. We just needed one more defensive stop and had to keep UCLA out of field goal range. As with the way this game has gone, I would be content just getting to overtime with them, but that might not happen now. We could still try to push them back out of field goal range, but a missed tackle here would be our last opportunity, and we would get a 3rd down stop, but there was not much time left to go. 5 seconds left. All we could do is hope and pray here, as Ben Merrill would line up and launch this deep to Thomas' hand, but there's a penalty. It is going to be passing interference against the defense, so that means we get one last untimed play here, as Ben Merrill can't even get it off in time, and it's going to be intercepted. And this season just keeps going from bad to worse, as we have yet to win a single conference game this season. On the bright side, we would land our first recruit of the season, but this poor performance by our team means our 2 players in the Heisman race have dropped off the board completely. We only had 8 total recruits left on our board, because almost all of them have committed to other schools now. So with no game to lose in this bye week, hopefully we can make up some ground and land some more of them. Thankfully, we would do just that, but would still manage to lose out on another recruit. The most recruits we could land now would only be a total of 7. So even though it was a little late in the season, I was going to try to add some more players to our board. We were taking on number 6 USC on the road, and this game could not have got off to a worse start for us than this. I think it was finally time to make the change back to our sophomore quarterback, Terrence Redmond, as even though Ben Merrill had a great game for us against FCS Northwest a couple weeks ago, he hasn't been able to do anything for us against Big Ten teams. If there was any bright spot to the season, it was that our defense did have some bright moments like this, as we'd force a fumble and recover, but with under 2 minutes to go here in the first half, we still hadn't been able to score any points at all. I was hoping Terrence Redmond could get us down the field and into the end zone, but USC was covering us great, as with a long 3rd and 10 here, Redmond would drop back to throw and he would go down. We finally had a chance to get our first points of the day on the board, but no surprise, we missed the kick. The only thing still holding us in this game was our defense, as they had only given up 1 touchdown all day, as we had finally managed to get down into the red zone and had a chance to tie this game up at 7 apiece. That pass was almost intercepted, but it would be Bobby Clemens taking it around the corner to tie it up at 7 apiece. But of course, this is the one time in the game our defense couldn't hold USC out of the end zone. It was time to see if Terrence Redmond could redeem himself and get us down into the end zone to overtime, but I'll be completely honest, with the way this season has gone for us, I didn't have much hope. Faced with a 4th and 11, this was basically going to be it for the game, as that would be incomplete, and that would officially make it 4 straight conference losses for us this year. Despite that loss, we would still land another recruit from our board, and we dropped all the way from A+ to a B in championship contending. After another bye week, we would at least land our first 5-star recruit of the season, which would bring us back up to a B+ in championship contender. This was a big conference game for us though, at home going up against Illinois, because not only was it a rivalry game, but we had one of our recruits visiting as well. Terrence Redmond was back starting at quarterback for us this game, as we were looking to pick up a win for the first time, as even though our season was pretty much down the drain, we still wanted to turn it around. It sucks we're not going to end this rebuild with a national championship, but at least we have our next dynasty, and I already have that team picked out, and I guarantee you we are going to win a national championship with them. We were faced with our first 3rd down of the day, as we would go with a halfback stretch to Juan Branham, but we would be faced with yet another one, and we would go right back to him, but he would be short, so we would keep the offense on the field with a wide receiver pitch, and we'd pick it up. That would give us a 1st and goal, where once again we would hand it off to Juan Branham, who would fight his way in, giving us a chance to get a defensive stop here against Illinois. Unfortunately, that wouldn't happen on that play, but we still could force a field goal here, and we would do just that with that incomplete pass, and now needed a it again. Like most games this season, it was our defense that was keeping us in this game as we now had a 2-minute drill. And thankfully, we still had all 3 timeouts here to work with as we would pick up a first down and more. Despite the low scoring output on offense, Terrence Redmond was actually looking pretty good against the Illini defense, as these last couple plays from him had helped us got down the field and into field goal range at a minimum. With only 27 seconds left, we were down inside the 15 and still had all our timeouts, but it didn't look like we were going to have to use any of them as Terrence Redmond would take this himself into the end zone for 6. We had a great opportunity to go up 21-3 over the Illini now, but if we wanted to do that, that meant we had to pick up this 3rd down conversion, and we would. That would set us up with a 1st and goal from the 9-yard line as we would go play action and find Thomas Hand in the end zone. And I don't know why it took us this long to start playing well against Big Ten teams. The Illini, however, would score a touchdown, so this game wasn't quite over yet, and they were already 2 for 2 on 4th down conversions, but thankfully we would get a stop here. Faced with a 3rd and 5, we needed to pick this up because we at least needed a field goal this drive, because an extra 3 points for us would make it a 2-possession game. That play going backwards for us did not help at all, but on 3rd and 15, we would not only pick up the first down, but a touchdown. And at this point in the game, it was looking like it was too little, too late for the Illini, even as they got the first. We would finally pick up our first conference win of the season, and it was big time for us because we had one of our recruits in attendance. Unfortunately, that didn't seem to matter though, as Sean Moncrief locked us out of his top 3 schools. And we only had one recruit left on our board who hadn't signed with us yet and was visiting in week 14. It definitely didn't look like we were going to land a top 5 recruiting class in the country this season, as with a 5-4 record on the season, we were fighting to even just get into a bowl game this season. A win on the road against the Washington Huskies, however, would secure a spot for us, but it was not off to a good start. Not only were we fighting for a bowl game, but we were both fighting to be the best Husky team in the conference. But I don't know if there's much merit to that, as we were both sitting at 5-4. We were down 7-0 early on and trying to stop from going down 2 possessions, but Washington was driving, and they had now found themselves down inside the red zone for the 2nd time. Our offensive stats looked absolutely dismal in the 1st quarter today, so hopefully things could change here in the 2nd when we got a stop. Backed up to a long 3rd and 14, we needed a stop here from our defense, and it looked like we'd get it, and instead of being down by 14, we would only be down by 10 points. We'd managed to get down into Washington territory, but with a 3rd down, we needed to pick this up, and thankfully we would do so. And that drive would end in a touchdown, giving us a chance to take the lead here before halftime, as this is a great pass. I have no idea how Terrence Redmond fit it into that window, but would take a sack on this play. And unfortunately, after 2 sacks in a row, it didn't look like this 2-minute drill would result in any points. We managed to make our way down into the red zone to start the 2nd half, but that was just an absolutely atrocious play blown up by their defensive line. We were back down in the red zone again, but being down by 10, that meant we could not settle for a field goal, making this a crucial 3rd and 3 as we would find Juan Branham in the end zone, giving us a potential chance to still win this game if we could get a stop. Our defense would do just that, and we now had over 3 minutes to work with, but already we were faced with a daunting 3rd and 7, and I have no idea how this was dropped. Unfortunately, that meant we would have to punt the ball away again, and we would just have to hope that our defense could give us another opportunity and not give up plays like this. Washington was running the clock down as low as they could, and we'd have to start using timeouts. So if we even got another chance on offense, that was going to make things that much tougher. If we wanted any chance at getting the ball back, we needed to force a 3rd down here, but we could not do that. And after using our last timeout, Washington would kneel out the rest of the clock. And with this loss, we still were not bowl eligible yet. We only had 2 games remaining, and one of them was on the road against number 21 Wisconsin. So if we wanted any chance of making a bowl game, we'd either have to upset them or defeat Rutgers at home. On paper, we were a much better team than the ranked Wisconsin Badgers, so theoretically, we should be able to win this game against them. We were still a game short of being bowl eligible, so it was important that we did beat the Badgers today. And we were off to a good start as we would convert yet another 3rd down getting inside the 10. It would be huge for us if we were able to score on our opening possession, and we would do just that as Terrence Redmond would find Dante Bober in the end zone. After our defense would get a stop, we had another opportunity to go up 2 possessions now, but we needed this 3rd down, and even though we were out of field goal range, that conversion would put us in field field goal range, but we couldn't take a sack here. I have absolutely no idea how that pass ended up getting completed for us. But I'm not going to complain, as we had a 1st and goal from the 4-yard line, and Redmond would roll out and he would complete that pass to Juan Branham, putting us up 14-0 over the Badgers. We were not able to convert that 3rd down, but coach wanted to go for it on 4th, and Denzel DeLoach would pick it up, bringing us up to another 3rd and 6 here, as Redmond would go to the left side for a 1st down, getting us down inside the red zone for the 3rd time today against the Badgers defense. 1st and goal to go from the 4-yard line, and it would be a wide receiver pitch to Thomas Hand, but our lead would still only be 14 points as Wisconsin would respond with a touchdown of their own. We now had just under a minute and a half to work with to try to get some points, as we would be faced with a 3rd and 10, and the stadium was going crazy as Terrence Redmond was gonna throw an interception, as we would jump to the 4th quarter and we were up 28-14 over the Badgers, with our defense coming up clutch, getting a stop there on 4th down, and now we would pick up 3rd and 9, putting us in the red zone with a chance to seal this game. Going backwards on plays like that wasn't gonna help us at all, but Thomas Hand would take it into the end zone this time, and that would do it, as we would pick up not only our 2nd conference win of the season, but also our 1st ranked opponent win. That would jump our championship contending grade back up to a B, and although we would get the win, we would lose out on Walter Stephen, as this was going to be a very small recruiting class and would only land 6 total prospects in it. We at least were no longer last place in the Big Ten Conference, as we had 4 teams underneath us, and the team directly above us in the standings we were taking on in our very last game of the season. With our win last week against the Badgers, we were finally bowl eligible for the first time this year, but that didn't mean we didn't need this win against Rutgers today. This was already going to be our worst season so far in this rebuild, but I wanted at least 7 wins, because a 6-6 record coming off of a national championship appearance just wouldn't look great. Faced with our first 3rd down of the day, we would see how we would respond, and we couldn't pick it up, and now we were looking to get a defensive stop against the Scarlet Knights here to keep them out of field goal range. Juan Rosario would do just that for us, but once again, Rutgers was finding their way down the field, and at least we would come up with a big time stop in the end zone there. Faced with another 3rd and 3, we were hopefully going to get another stop this time, but that unfortunately did not happen, and we now found ourselves down 7-0. Terrence Redmond had just under a minute and a half to work with to try to get ourselves down the field, and this possession was looking promising as we got inside Rutgers territory and still had all 3 timeouts. At a minimum, we were going to need a field goal this possession before halftime, so I felt pretty good about our chances when Terrence Redmond would complete this pass to Denzel DeLoach inside the 20. There was less than a minute to go here, and we still had 2 of our timeouts, but we wouldn't need them as Terrence Redmond would run this one in, but Rutgers would get one last play here on 4th down before halftime, and thankfully we get the stop as we had a chance now to take the first lead of the game in the 2nd half. On 2nd down, it would be a handoff to Juan Branham, who would fight his way forward through defenders, but he would fumble the ball on the goal line, wasting away our opportunity to take the lead over Rutgers. They now had a 1st and goal from the 6-yard line, and they were looking to take the lead, tacking on another touchdown after that, going up 21-7 over us as we needed points in this drive. From the 9-yard line now, Terrence Redmond would go to the end zone, and we would convert our 2-point conversion, meaning we needed a stop now. Rutgers was faced with a long 3rd and 10, and the stadium was rocking, but they would pick it up, and with a fresh set of downs, that meant they could run a lot of time off the clock. Thankfully, the 2-minute timeout would stop it for us, and we still had all 3 timeouts, as we had them backed up to another long 3rd and 14 and would get the stop. It was time to see if Terrence Redmond could deliver a game-winning drive for us for the very first time, but instead, the very first pass would be intercepted for a pick 6. Something that unfortunately is all too familiar at this point, as this game is out of reach now. It sucks that this season is going to end with such a horrible record for us at 6-7. 6-6. But it's tough to compete in such a tough conference like the Big Ten when you have such a young team like we do. We lost most of our starting lineup last year after making it to the national championship against Michigan, as we would throw another interception, and that would bring the regular season to a dismal end for us, as we would lose our last game at home 29-15 to Rutgers. That would drop our championship contending back down to a C+, no surprise at all. And all around for us, it was just a tough season as Terrence Redmond threw 13 touchdowns to 10 interceptions. And on paper, Ben Merrill was the better quarterback, but our offense just seemed to struggle more with him at the helm. Juan Branham, who was once a Heisman contender early in the season, finished under 1,000 yards on the year. And while Thomas Hand definitely had a solid season, it was no doubt the lowest statistic year of his career. Antoine Penny had a fantastic season for us on defense, as well as our senior redshirt cornerback Malik Cobb. Unfortunately, our defense could only do so much for us this year with a horrible offense, as that would land us with a 6-6 overall record and a 2-6 record, only 3 spots out from last place in the Big Ten in our final season of the rebuild. We currently weren't even projected in any bowl games, so my fingers were crossed that we would get one. And man, what a way to end this rebuild, as we go from playing in the national championship last season to not even making a bowl game in our last season. This is a tough way to end the rebuild, and definitely not the way I thought we'd end on this game, but we at least have this summer on College Football 26, where my teams for Dynasty are down to 3 choices. So if you made it this far in the video, be sure to comment down below what team you want to see as my College Football 26 Dynasty. It was time for the offseason, as we had to regroup after that tough 6-6 season. It didn't help that we only signed 6 different recruits this season, but thankfully we would be keeping our entire coaching staff around for next year. This was a big point of contention we had to change, as our championship contending was only a C+. And this year's national championship was going to be number 11 Michigan taking on number 12 Florida. That was a surprising matchup, as Michigan would end up taking home the national championship. And now it was time to start the offseason and see players leaving, as Antoine Penny was going to be leaving, projected to be a first-round draft pick, but we needed to persuade Damone Jennings to not leave in the transfer portal, and thankfully he has decided to stay with us. Bryce Hainsey also wanted to transfer, and he as well was going to stay with us for one more season. We were losing a lot of our top players from our defense though, so it is going to be another tough season next year, but we could finally hit the transfer portal and try to land some more players to our team now. There were only 3 players interested in us in the transfer portal, so we were adding all of them to the board and going after them, and thankfully 2 out of 3 of them were defensive players. We would eventually land Quentin Granger in the transfer portal, but would lose out on Evan Ritter to Northwestern and Jamie Burns to Michigan. With 7 total recruits, we ended up having the 88th ranked class in the country, which was absolutely horrible for us. After training results this offseason though, I'm feeling refreshed about our chances for next season, specifically at the quarterback position, as Terrence Redmond is now up to an 86 overall. Our schedule going into next season was again another tough one, specifically with non-conference game against South Carolina in week 3. But being a 92 overall, I still feel like we can compete this year for a national championship to end this series. We were at home for our first game of the season, and this should be an easy win for us as we were taking on FCS West. Terrence Redmond was looking to have a bounce-back season this year after having an up-and-down year last year with benching and starting and going back and forth between the two. He had done a great job getting us down into the red zone on our first drive, but couldn't get in the end zone, and so we were keeping the offense here on the field on 4th and goal, and this would result in an easy touchdown. That would be our only touchdown in the first quarter, but now had a chance to go up 14-0 over FCS West, and once again found ourselves inching closer towards the red zone, but we couldn't pick up the first down. We would have just under a minute to try to get down the field and score some more points here, as we would set up a halfback screen, and this one would be taken all the way to the house for a touchdown. And even though it was only a field goal, it was looking like we had this game on lock. Even being up 31-3, that didn't mean we were slowing down, as Bobby Clemens would take this in for a touchdown. And at least this year was off to the start we wanted. Terrence Redmond looked amazing in this game, and no surprise, he would get player of the game. We would have a Big Ten Defensive Player of the Week after that dominant win as well. And now we had a tough SEC opponent coming to DeKalb to take us on in South Carolina. Carolina. This was going to be a tough test early on in the season for us, so we wanted to make sure we could beat the Cox with no problem, as Thomas Hand took this opening play all the way to the house for us. And now we had to see if we could block the Cox from scoring on this drive. Unfortunately, South Carolina would tie it up, and it was a 7-apiece ball game as we were nearing the end of the first half, but Terrence Redmond was looking to change that for us. As we were just past midfield and Redmond would drop back to throw, finding our running back out of the backfield who had a seam and would take this into the end zone for a touchdown. And now headed into the fourth quarter, we found ourselves up 28-10 and needed a 4th down stop. We weren't able to get it, but once again, they were going for it on 4th down, and this time we'd get it. And if we could run out the rest of the clock on this drive, we should be able to walk away with a victory, no problem, over South Carolina as we'd extend it. Now faced with a 1st and goal from the 8, it would be Thomas Hand on the wide receiver pitch into the end zone. And the Cox were no problem for the Huskies as we'd pick up the victory here at home, 35-17, and start the season 2-0. Our championship contender rating was slowly rising throughout the season, and hopefully this next game against San Diego State should be a relatively easy win for us. We could already tell that this year's team was a lot more experienced and improved over last year's team that was very young and inexperienced. So it was no surprise that Terrence Redmond was helping us jump out to an early 21-0 lead over the Aztecs early in this game. Despite his great play, he still was a young quarterback who sometimes struggled with accuracy issues. But so far, he was delivering for us when we needed it, like picking up this 4th down that would end up turning into a touchdown for us. This game ended up being even more of a blowout than our FCS game, and man, did this start to the season feel special. Terrence Redmond once again had a fantastic day for us through the air, but unfortunately, he still wasn't anywhere on the 2031 Heisman list just yet. This was a big game for us going up against number 13 Michigan at home, not only because it was a ranked conference opponent, but we had almost half of our recruiting board visiting for this game. If we could pick up a win here, not only would we find ourselves ranked in the top 25, but we more than likely would end up landing a lot of recruits on our board, as this drive looked like it was off to a great start as we would get down inside the 20 and take this to the end zone. Unfortunately, Michigan would respond by finding their way down inside the 10, but we would be able to hold them and keep them out of the end zone on 3rd and goal. That's the type of defense we're going to need this year if we're going to win the national championship, as we'd block the kick, but we were going to need another strong stop from our defense now. Once again, we'd get another 3rd down stop, but couldn't block the kick this time. But we now had a chance to go up 14-3 over Michigan if Thomas Hand could get the corner and get this into the end zone. This was not the position we wanted to be in, but we would hand it off to Sergio Maragos to try to find some room to work with, but instead he would find way more room than needed, taking this all the way to the house for a 96-yard touchdown run. Michigan wasn't going away though, as they got it down to a 3-point game, meaning they would have a chance to tie it even if we got a stop on 3rd down here. That sack would make this field goal try a little bit longer, but they would nail it, no problem. But we now had great field position, and we're going to try to drain as much time off the clock as we could. This would be our last play before the 2-minute timeout, and instead of running out the clock, we would take an easy touchdown. And so now we had to come up with a stop against this Michigan offense. Faced with a 4th and 4, this was for the game as the stadium was going crazy, and our defense was gonna get the sack, so all we need is one more 1st down, but why not make it a touchdown? We finally got our revenge for the past few seasons against Michigan, as this was a big time win here at home for the Huskies. The flood of recruits started falling in for us, as they were all 4 stars or better, and our championship contenders shot up to a B+ rating after that win. It only ended up being 2 recruits who signed with us, a wide receiver and a 4-star right end, but we had a very good chance at landing everyone else on our board still. Somehow, we still didn't have a single player on the Heisman watch, and I thought for sure that win would get us ranked in the top 25, but we were still unranked. We'd been off to a much better start so far this season than we had last season, and we're looking to continue that success on the road against Maryland. And so far, it was looking like that was happening, as early on, we had got down inside the red zone and were looking to score. Backed up now to a 3rd and goal from the 6, we were hoping we could find our way in, and Denzel DeLoach would do just that. And after a takeaway from our defense, we had great field position as Bobby Clemens would take this for a touchdown on the receiver sweep. And it wasn't even the end of the first quarter yet, as as this game looked like it was going to get out of hand quickly for Maryland. We would eventually give up a field goal to them, but once again we're in scoring position as Denzel DeLoach would take this in for a second touchdown of the day. And after that, there was very little Maryland could do to get themselves back in this game as Thomas Hand would score for us again. And our perfect season continued for us as we would take down Maryland 41-17 with this big time road victory. That win would land us another recruit in 4-star middle linebacker Tyler Cantwell, as well as 4-star tight end Darren Eberle. We would, however, end up losing out on some recruits, as 3 of them would sign with other schools, but thankfully we still had a good amount of recruits on our board. That win over Maryland would also get us finally ranked in the top 25 for the first time this season, but still none of our players were anywhere on the Heisman Trophy watch list. Hopefully with this game against almost winless Indiana, we could get some more stats on the board for these players, as Thomas Hand was getting us off to a great start down inside the 10-yard line, and on 1st and goal from the 1, it would be Sergio Maragos taking it in on the halfback pitch. This game was a little closer than I would have liked it to be nearing halftime, but we still had just under a minute to try to get down the field and score another touchdown. This drive was off to a great start with that pass to Denzel DeLoach, and Terrence Redmond would try to go right back to him again, but that would be intercepted by the Indiana defense. But thankfully, he'd have a chance to make up for that here, as on 1st and goal, he would find Denzel DeLoach this time, and that would end up being a touchdown instead of an interception, as we would get the 4th down stop. And one more touchdown in the red zone here could seal the game for us, as Terrence Redmond, instead of throwing it, would take it himself and run it into the end zone. And our undefeated season was going to stay alive, as we'd get the 28-10 victory here at home. Terrence Redmond once again had a fantastic game for us, but that was still not enough to get him on the Heisman watch list. We ended up losing out on another recruit, but he was a bust, so it was okay. And this game against number 11 UConn was a very important matchup for us. Even though it wasn't a conference opponent, it was not only a top 25 matchup for us, but we had almost all our remaining recruits visiting for this game. UConn's ratings on paper weren't much higher than that of Indiana's, but they were a top 15 team in the country, so this was going to be a lot tougher than last week's matchup, as we were off to a great start. It didn't take long for us to find ourselves down inside the red zone. It was Thomas Hand taking the wide receiver pitch in for a touchdown, and with our stadium going crazy, it was time to see if our defense could get a stop against the UConn Huskies offense. While we were able to hold them to a field goal, our offense hasn't done anything since, but now we had an opportunity to change that and try to get in the red zone here, as I don't know what Terrence Redmond is doing, but it looks like it's gonna pay off, as he'll find his way in for a touchdown. And now we were up by 11, headed into the 4th quarter, and could try to put this game away. One more touchdown would pretty much secure this game for us, but we couldn't score a field goal, as Sergio Maragos would do that for us, and it looked like we were gonna get this victory over number 11 UConn. This was by far our biggest win of the season yet, and hopefully we could land those last 3 recruits on our board. After that game, we would land 4-star free safety Isaac DeMarco, 4-star wide receiver Leon Coker, and 4-star right guard George Smoker. Our championship contender grade was up to an A now as well, and last week I added a bunch of new recruits to the board, and we were already climbing up their lists. So that meant our recruiting wasn't done this season, as we still had the potential to land a top 5 recruiting class. After that win, we jumped all the way up from number 16 to number 7 in the country, but unfortunately still no player of ours was on the Heisman watch list. We were back at home taking on USC, and we were looking to get revenge for their game where they had beat us last year in LA. Terrence Redmond was already off to a great start with that fantastic completion to Bobby Clements, and was going for him deep in the end zone, but unfortunately they would rule that pass incomplete, and we'd be faced with a 2nd down. It wouldn't take long for us to make up for that and find ourselves down inside the red zone though, and on 3rd and goal from the 6, we weren't thinking field goal, as Terrence Redmond would roll out of the pocket, and he was going to take this himself into the end zone for 6. USC was making this game interesting, however, as it was tied up at 7 apiece here in the 2nd quarter, but that would change quickly as we would go up 14-7 and had a chance to extend this to 2 possessions before the end of the 1st half. That pass would unfortunately fall incomplete, but Terrence Redmond would find a wide open Denzel DeLoach on the very next play, and he had lots of room in front of him. But unfortunately, a tight end normally is not as fast as a defensive back, and And that sack would now set us up with a 2nd and 13 as we would go to Sergio Maragos out of the backfield, who would pick up the first down. And that would already put Terrence Redmond over 200 yards on the day here in the first half, as he would go back to Denzel DeLoach. And that really seemed to kickstart our offense, as nearing the end of the third quarter, we were going to go up 35-7. USC would tack on another touchdown, but one last first down would secure the game for us. And this was a big time win for us here at home, as we would start this season 8-0. Terrence Redmond had a fantastic game once again, but unfortunately still no Heisman watch for our quarterback. We were, however, ranked number 2 in the country and were projected to get the top seed in the college football playoffs now this year. And of the 8 remaining 4-star recruits on our board, there was only one of them that we weren't on the top of their list for. After our bye week and not playing, we had dropped down to number 3 in the country, but we were looking to change that against Illinois. And as someone who's graduated from both NIU and U of I absolutely wanted to kill the Illini today. So far, the start we are off to today definitely indicated the game might be going that way, as it only took us 3 plays to get down and into the end zone. But unfortunately, the Illini would also find the end zone, but couldn't seem to make the extra point, as we would respond back with another touchdown. Faced with a 3rd and 8, we wanted to keep this drive alive and go up by 2 possessions over Illinois. And while we weren't going to score a touchdown, at least we could squeak in a field goal. This game was a lot closer than I would have liked it to be here in the third quarter, but thankfully that sack took them out of field goal range, and now we could try to get a 4th down stop. Damone Jennings would come up with that big time play for us on defense, and now we had a chance to put this game away for good, as Terrence Redmond was looking for what could be his 4th touchdown pass of the day, and he would get it with this completion to Bobby Clemens. We eventually would pull away from the Illini at the end of this game, solidifying ourselves as the best college football team in the state. Terrence Redmond absolutely blew the top off the Illini defense, and was looking to do the same here against Washington, as we had half of our remaining recruits visiting for this game. That touchdown pass to Bryce Hainsey got us off to a good start, and Thomas Hand would follow it up for us. But we needed to get our way back on the board, as Washington scored a touchdown, and I have absolutely no idea what we were thinking with this play. That honestly might be my most smooth-brained play I have made in the entire year that this game has been out. But thankfully, we are going to recover from that with a great throw the next play from Terrence Redmond, but we couldn't pick up this first. So at least we would get a field goal out of this drive, but we would miss it. I've been playing this game for a full year now, and I still cannot kick field goals to save my life. But thankfully, that doesn't seem like it's going to bite us in the butt, as Thomas Hand would once again find the end zone. We wanted a little extra breathing room headed into 4th quarter against Washington, as we would take a deep shot here to Thomas Hand for a touchdown. And what an absolute dime of a pass from Terrence Redmond, as I have no idea why he isn't on the Heisman watch list. You could honestly make an argument that Thomas Hand should be on the Heisman watch list as well, as once again on 1st and 10 from the 11, he would find the end zone for us to secure this game. Hopefully this win for us here at home would get some recruits to sign on the dotted line, but unfortunately none of them have signed just yet, even though we're the number 1 school for all of them. Finally, Terrence Redmond has fought his way onto the Heisman watch list, sitting down at number 4, and we'll see if he can climb the list with a great performance against number 4 UCLA. This was perhaps the toughest environment we've had to play in all season, as their stadium atmosphere was ranked 24th in the entire country, but that hadn't seemed to phase our offense just yet, as we got down into UCLA territory, and once again it would be Thomas Hand scoring for us. And now we had a chance to get a stop against the Bruins on their very first drive. This had been a very closely contested game so far, as we were only halfway through the third quarter and it was still only 7-0, but hopefully that would change with this play here, with that forced fumble giving our offense prime field position to try to get in the end zone, as we would do just that, and there is no way Denzel DeLoach dropped that wide open touchdown. I thought for sure that that was going to be an easy touchdown for us, as we now faced a 3rd down, but we would pick it up, getting down to the 5-yard line, where we'd take a chance at the end zone and it would be intercepted. And this is without a doubt definitely the toughest game we have played all season long, as we now need to hold UCLA out of the end zone. I'll be honest, I don't like Terrence Redmond's Heisman chances after his stat line in this game, but all I'm really concerned about is just getting a stop and the win. Thankfully, we'd hold them on 3rd down and force them to kick a field goal, and now it was up to Terrence Redmond and our offense to try to hold on to the lead and the game. We'd got down past midfield, and this was going to be our last play before the 2-minute timeout as Bobby Clemens would pick up the first down. And now, if we were smart with this possession, we might be able to run out the rest of the clock or secure this game with a Thomas Hand touchdown. The Bruins, faced with a 4th and 11, had to go for it to try to keep their drive alive, and it would be incomplete. And I'm not gonna lie, I want to pad some stats here as they would leave Bobby Clemens wide open on 3rd down for a touchdown. And we are gonna walk away with a very close victory here against UCLA, proving that we definitely are one of the top teams in the nation. We'll see if that stat line is enough to keep Terrence Redmond on the Heisman watch list, as that win would land us some more recruits to our recruiting class. And even though we'd miss out on 4-star Dion Davey to Penn State, we had all of our remaining recruits visiting this very next game. As expected, that game did drop Terrence Redmond down to the bottom of the Heisman watch list, but it did jump our team up to #1 in the country as we were looking to finish the season undefeated, and Sergio Maragos would get us started with a 96-yard touchdown run against the Badgers defense. But it wouldn't take long for them to respond right back, as now we needed to find the end zone, and we're hoping to do it with this play here. If only Bobby Clemens didn't run through the back of the end zone, as we'd miss another field goal. This is not the start to the game we wanted, with a lot of recruits visiting against the Badgers this game. But with just over a minute and a half left to go in the first half, we had a chance to get some points finally. We were nearing the red zone, and with the way I was kicking the ball, we needed a touchdown and not a field goal. And thankfully, Jimmy Moses would deliver that for us right before halftime. Unfortunately, the Badgers would score a field goal and now had a chance to take the lead here in the second half against us. But look at this tip drill interception as we'd get it back. But once again, our offense wasn't able to do anything against this Badgers defense as we'd come up with a sack on 1st down. On 2nd and long, it would be play action, and the Badgers would take a shot to the end zone, and I don't know how they came down with this. And something needed to change, and it needed to change quickly for us. Our offense had done absolutely nothing in the second half so far except give up a safety to Wisconsin, so we needed some points. And although Terrence Redmond wasn't playing bad this game, he just wasn't producing like he normally had until this play. We were keeping our offense on the field to go for 2 to make it a 3-point game against the Badgers. And so now we needed to get a stop on this possession if we wanted to win the game. This play was an absolute nightmare for the Badgers, as we would not only force a fumble, but no one could land on it as the ball would get kicked around, and then we would finally pick it up. And a touchdown on this drive would officially be able to put the game away for good, as we would find Jimmy Moses wide open down the right sideline to do just that. What a wild turn of events for us in just 2 plays against the Badgers, as they would end up scoring a touchdown, and now we needed to recover this onside kick, and I don't know who's coming down with it, but thankfully we would. That ending was way too close for comfort as we almost gave up the onside kick, but thankfully we're going to hold on to stay undefeated and finish the year 12-0. Terrence Redmond definitely turned this game around in the second half for us, and because of that, we would land some new recruits with that victory. We would land ourselves in the Big 10 Championship against number 3 Oregon, and even though we would end up losing out on some recruits on our board, I was okay with that because we still had a very solid recruiting class. These were all players we added onto the board late in the season that I didn't even think we'd get, but we've already landed most of those players. While it wasn't fantastic by any means, we currently had the 37th ranked recruiting class, but we would land another recruit in our bye week, and now it was time to see if we could win the Big 10 Championship. This was by far the most difficult matchup we were going to have our entire season yet, but it was definitely going to be a good warm-up for us getting ready for the playoffs. It only took us 3 plays to get across midfield, and this was going to be the first pass of the day for Terrence Redmond. And if we were going to defeat the number 3 Ducks in this championship game, we were going to need him to play amazing and make throws just like this all night long. Our defense would come up with a big stop against the Ducks offense on their first possession of the game, and we needed to take every opportunity we could to extend this lead. That meant going for it on 4th down when we could, because we knew how bad I was at field goals, and that decision seemed to be paying off for us as we had got down inside the 15-yard line. Like I said earlier, if we were going to win this game, Terrence Redmond had to be playing amazing, and so far he was, both through the air and on the ground. And with just under 2 minutes to go in the first half, we had a chance to get down the field and extend our lead, as we would do just that in a single play. Knock on wood, but it almost makes me nervous how much easier this game has been than games against Wisconsin and UCLA, as it was now the 3rd quarter and we were going to go up 28-0 over Oregon. Their offense had finally gotten down the field and into the end zone, but it was still a steep comeback, as on 2nd and goal from the 1, Sergio Maragos would bring it back to a 28-point lead. A stop on 4th down would all but secure this win for us, and we would get it. We had officially done it as we would win the Big Ten Championship, and this was so much sweeter after last year's tough season. Even though we had won this championship, the journey wasn't over just yet, as we still had to make it through 3 rounds of the college football playoffs to be crowned national champions. To my surprise, before the playoffs started, Terrence Redmond got named the Heisman winner of the 2031 season for the NIU Huskies, and hopefully having the Heisman winning quarterback could help us defeat number 8 Michigan in the first round of the playoffs. It was the first round of the playoffs, and we were taking on another Big Ten team in Michigan, and off rip, the very first play, Sergio Maragos would take it to the house for 6 for us. But now Michigan's offense was down in the red zone, threatening to score a touchdown themselves. We would force a 3rd and 2 and hopefully would get a stop, but Patrick Allen would show off his mobility and take it in the end zone for the Wolverines. But halfway through the second quarter, we would have a 1st and goal of our own, and Bobby Clemens would take it in. Once again, we had a chance to get a stop against the Wolverines offense on 3rd down, but they would tie it up at 14 apiece headed into the second half. On our opening drive, we were down inside the 10 with a 1st and goal to go, as on 3rd and goal from the 4, Terrence Redmond would roll out to his left and take it in himself to give us the lead. Michigan was in scoring position, so we needed to get a 3rd down stop here, but couldn't pick it up. And now the Wolverines found themselves inside the 10-yard line, and we're going to tie it up at 21 apiece. After our offense did nothing, we needed to get a stop on this possession, and we would force a long 3rd and 11 for the Wolverines offense as Patrick Allen couldn't escape the pressure, and we now had the chance to win this game on this one last possession. We would bring the ball into the red zone just after the 2-minute timeout, and for some reason Michigan wasn't using any of their timeouts. Finally, they would use their first one there as we'd have a handoff to Sergio Maragos, and on 3rd and 2, we were thinking the end zone as we would find our way in. That would give Patrick Allen and the Wolverines offense just over a minute to work with to try to get down the field and score a touchdown, but they only had 1 timeout remaining and they could not afford a field goal. Faced with a long 3rd and 18, we just needed 2 more stops on this drive, and with it being 4th and 25, we were going to bring the pressure as that would pay off and we would get a game-clinching interception that we were going to take back for a pick 6. It was a close one down to the very last play of the game, but we would get the victory over Michigan to advance in the playoffs, as we would hoist the Rose Bowl trophy here in Pasadena and would be moving on to take on number 18 Marshall in the college football playoff semifinals. The Thunder and Herd were the 12th ranked team in the playoffs, meaning they were the very bottom seed. Somehow they had gone this far, but this was going to be their last game. We had defeated plenty of teams already this season that were loads more difficult than Marshall, and we were looking to go up 3 possessions, as this play here would put Terrence Redmond over 150 yards already in the first quarter. Our offense had seemed to slow down just a little bit in the second quarter, but we were still looking for more points before halftime and would get them with this play. But somehow we had let Marshall get it back to a 2-possession game and needed a 4th down stop here, as this was tipped and caught twice. What a play by our defense, but we need another 4th down stop here on 4th and inches. But now all we needed to do was recover an onside kick and we would be headed to the national championship for the 2nd time. And we would do just that, as we would pick up this victory against Marshall, albeit a lot closer than we would have liked it to be. A win is a win, however, and we were headed to the national championship game, where it was going to be a Big Ten championship rematch for us going up against the Oregon Ducks. We'd already beat Oregon in dominating fashion one time this season, so I had no reason to believe we couldn't do it again, but we weren't going to do it if we were making plays like this to start the game. And please get that stupid duck off my screen while I'm trying to win this game. Thankfully, our defense would get a stand, and now we were moving down the field looking to score in the red zone. And we would do just that on 1st and goal from the 2, as Jimmy Moses would take the wide receiver pitch into the end zone. Our defense was playing fantastic so far for us today, giving us chances to extend this lead, as once again we'd gone down in the red zone and faced with a 3rd and 6 would take a shot to find Jimmy Moses once again. Our defense came away with a huge takeaway and really gave us a chance to put our foot on the gas, and it just was not looking good for Oregon at all, as it wasn't even halftime yet. The 12th seeded Marshall Thunder and Herd had given us more trouble last game than Oregon has given us this entire game so far, as we were now down inside the 10-yard line and looking to make this a 35-0 game. That wasn't going to happen with that incompletion, but we'd still take a field goal, and Oregon had finally made their way somewhat back into this game as they would recover this onside kick. 4th and 4, we needed to get a stop inside the 10-yard line, and we would do just just that, forcing a fumble. And that's all it would take, as NIU would finally win the national championship. 8 long seasons it took for us, but it was finally completed. And what a ride it has been on College Football 25 for me, as now we get ready to do the same thing with a new team on College Football 26 this week.